Hey y'all, I'm Janet, and I'm not buying games on Steam anymore. I mentioned on my Switch 2 video that I'm going to be buying PC games on GOG from now on. In fact, for my favorite games, I'll be repurchasing them on GOG. Why? Because of property rights. Property rights are a cornerstone of economic and personal freedom. Their application to digital game ownership and licensing is complex. Modern U.S. law hasn't kept up with the digital age, and that has created tension between individuals and corporations. Let's dive into it. Property rights define who owns something, what they can do with it, and how they can exclude others from using it. Strong property rights incentivize creation, investment, and innovation by ensuring individuals can reap the rewards of their efforts. They also provide stability. Knowing your house, car, or book collection can't be arbitrarily taken fosters trust and economic activity. Without clear property rights, there's chaos. People hesitate to invest or create if they fear losing what's theirs. When you buy a digital game, say on Steam, PlayStation Network, or Xbox, you're rarely purchasing the game itself. I know when I bought most of the games in my Steam library, I just assumed it was a real purchase. I assumed I was buying the right to download and keep that game forever, but that isn't the case. Instead, on Steam, you're buying a license to access and play the game under specific terms set by the publisher or the platform. And this is where property rights get a little murky. Physical property rights let you sell your old Nintendo 64 cartridge at a yard sale. Digital licenses are usually not transferable. This limits your ability to treat the game as property, reducing its value to you and locking you into the platform's ecosystem. And unlike a physical game cartridge, which you can resell, lend, or keep indefinitely, digital games come with restrictions. Your license might be tied to a platform's servers, meaning that if that service shuts down, or if your account is banned, or if your internet is out, you could lose access temporarily or permanently. For example, in 2023, Ubisoft delisted Assassin's Creed Liberation HD from Steam, rendering it unplayable for some owners when servers went offline. You don't fully own the game in the traditional sense on Steam. Your rights are constrained by the terms of service. Publishers can remotely alter or revoke access to digital games. In 2022, Sony faced backlash for threatening to remove purchased movies from PlayStation accounts in certain regions due to licensing disputes. Even though users paid for access, their ownership was subject to corporate whims, highlighting how weak property rights are in digital spaces. In 2023, Sony did it again, this time with Discovery video content. I've played Terraria since launch. In the years since, the game has changed significantly, and while I do love what the game has become, mostly, I can't go back and play the OG version of it. I am absolutely stuck with the current one. Stronger property rights in digital games would shift the balance toward consumers. If you had true ownership, like with physical media, you could resell, lend, or mod games without fear of losing access. This would force companies to compete on quality and longevity, rather than lock you into a walled garden of an ecosystem. Indeed, Nintendo was rolling out game sharing on the Switch 2. This is a great pro-consumer action on Nintendo's part, and they don't get enough credit for it. They're doing a good job, at least with the game sharing. Digital games are cultural artifacts. Weak property rights mean companies can erase them when they're no longer profitable or if they suddenly find them problematic. When this happens, entire slices of our cultural history are just gone. Transparent ownership rights could mandate offline playability or open source preservation. GOG is working on game preservation, and I hope that other companies follow their lead. The 2018 shutdown of Marvel Heroes Omega wiped out a game players had spent thousands of hours and dollars on. When Firefall finally clearly became garbage and the player base left, I was a big player in Firefall. I loved it so much. When everybody left, I lost touch with friends with whom I had spent hundreds of hours thumping and chasing Chosen and jumping in tornadoes. I really miss them. Y'all, if you played Firefall and you ever played with Jane Grey, leave a comment down below. Let me know. I would love to get back in touch with you. Property rights ensure you get what you pay for. If you spend $70 or $80 or even $90 on a game, you expect to control it. Like any other purchase, licensing models undermine this, letting companies extract value while limiting your freedom. So what is the other side to this? Well, game companies argue that licensing protects their intellectual property and ensures ongoing revenue for updates, servers, and anti-piracy measures. Developing a game like Cyberpunk 2077 cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and licensing helps recoup that. They also claim it prevents fraud, like reselling hacked accounts, and keeps multiplayer ecosystems secure. Without licensing, they argue, the industry might collapse under piracy or unsustainable cost. But this argument often overreaches. Licensing frequently prioritizes corporate control over consumer rights, using piracy prevention as a pretext to limit resale markets or force dependence on proprietary platforms. Blockchain-based ownership models like NFTs have been floated as a solution to give players true digital property rights, but they're controversial and they haven't gained mainstream traction due to complexity and environmental concerns. And none of this is to say that I think intellectual property rights and licensing shouldn't be allowed. I am a strong proponent of intellectual property rights. Trademarks and copyrights are better for consumers. Without the ability to own their creations and monetize them, creators would have no incentive to create or innovate. And none of us want to go back to some sort of trade guild system. The problem is that modern law hasn't kept up with modern technology, and the current copyright system in the US is just broken. It is manipulated by big companies and abusive of small creators and owners. So what are the stakes? Property rights in digital games aren't just about playing Call of Duty without a hitch. They're about who controls the future of creative works. If you can't own what you buy, companies can dictate terms indefinitely, eroding trust and stifling competition. Stronger digital property rights would give players leverage, but they'd challenge the industry's current profit model. Conversely, unchecked licensing gives corporations near total control, risking a future where games are less permanent than a rented movie. And the balance matters. Too much restriction, and consumers lose. Too little restriction, and creators might struggle. The question is whether we prioritize individual freedom or corporate security. And right now, the scales tip heavily toward big business. So I'll be purchasing PC games from GOG from now on. And I'll be repurchasing my favorite PC games on GOG. Their terms of service aren't perfect, and often ownership of your GOG games depend highly on the publisher or developers. That's something to watch out for. Make sure you read all the terms of services for all the different games. Sometimes it's a third-party terms of service you have to watch out for. But on the whole, I think GOG has a more consumer-friendly platform than Steam. And maybe someday another PC gaming platform will emerge that will be even more consumer-friendly. Good job, GOG. Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. I appreciate you. This is another long one. Bye.